Welcome to Meet My Friends, or Meet My Friend today uh, with Daddy Porter. That's me. Um, I'm here with Ryan Newhouse. He is, for me, he is my Montana beer expert. Um, I met Ryan at the Beer Bloggers Conference a couple years ago. Last year, he helped host the Beer Bloggers Conference in Montana. I took a 24-hour road trip from my house to Montana. It was one of the best road trips I've ever had in my life. I completely enjoyed Montana beer. I completely enjoyed the Big Sky. Had a this a I don't want to say life changing, but I'll just tell you that it was sphere changing in my head about beer and what I thought about Montana, my predisposed conditions about what I thought it was and what it ended up being. So I'm really happy to have Ryan here to talk about Montana beer because I have such an affinity for it. I just love it now. I can't say enough about the beer, the place, the atmosphere. It's just so much fun. So without further ado, I'm gonna bring Ryan on, and we are going to talk about Montana beer. And I just love it, love it, love it. What's up, Ryan? How you doing?
Good, man. How are you?
I'm doing great, man. But before I even we'll get to your story. I do want to have the backdrop of I don't know if you know this part, but I kind of started late on my planning to go to Montana last year, and by the time I was looking at flights, they were just inconvenient and they were too much. Yeah. So I ended up telling the lady that I was not going to Montana because it was inconvenient, it was too much, and I just didn't feel like I should spend that much money. So she's like, why don't you just road trip? And it had never even been in my head or even on my sphere. And I was like, no, I don't want a road trip. So I actually, I said it in my head, but I went to sleep, slept on it, woke up, and was like, yeah, I want a road trip. And it was this. I can't say enough about how fantastic and fun it was, and I would have missed that opportunity if I wouldn't have listened to her. So I'm happy about that. So I ended up meeting you there, and like I said before, you are for me the Montana beer expert. So where are you from, Montana? Is this your home base? How did you find Montana? But also before that, go to how did you find craft beer? Because I believe craft beer is a thing that people have to discover. And it's not there. You have to discover it. Once you do, it changes your life. So how'd you start craft beer too? And how did the whole Montana thing come together and all that?
Awesome. Well, hey, thanks for having me on. Super happy. Yes. Cheers, man. So the story of craft beer and the story of Montana for me are really intertwined for sure. I discovered craft beer also by traveling. And I was in school in the Southeast in Tennessee and took a spring break road trip with a girlfriend at the time. And we road tripped all the way up to Maine. And it was seeing a six-pack of Flying Dog, one of their blueberry with, that beautiful Ralph Steadman art, hand-drawn art. So, which he's done so much for them. And it was kind of like you're picking a book by its cover, right? So I found this awesome artwork on beer I'd never seen before. I picked it up, and we drank it by a campfire or something like that. It was great. So I kind of realized at that point there was so much more. I had been a beer tender pretty much since 18. I've been in the serving restaurant industry since 16. So I've been around the macro beers for sure and seeing a lot of people drink because, by volume, not really by any discerning flavor as much. But then like your story, Greg, you just shared my story to get to Montana. It's the same way. It was a road trip. It was a road trip from Tennessee all the way up through various national parks and national monuments. And I spent a good portion of my summer before my junior year, I believe, in college, and ended up spending my first night in Montana in Billings and camping on the Yellowstone River there, the KOA. Oh. And we went into a convenience store. And again, here, looking at this awesome artwork, were 6 packs of Yellowstone Valley Brewing Company, Grizzly Wolf, which was WULFF, which is a type of fly fishing fly. And so I picked up these awesome 6 packs, and that was my first Montana beer. And I did save a couple bottles throughout the summer to bring back and share with friends back in college. And I honestly, at that one and that very first night in Montana, a friend had given me a book a little bit later, which was The River Runs Through It, right? The iconic movie with Brad Pitt shadow casting. But I have in my journal from that very night on the in Billings on the Yellowstone River that says, I don't know why and I don't know how, but I'm going to move to Montana. And I really had no concept of why, but it drew me in. So I ended up volunteering in Yellowstone National Park in the Tetons, and going back and finishing some of my school, and read A River Runs Through It, read some other works set in Montana or by Montana writers. And I was like, okay, I want to be a writer and I want to be out west. So I applied for grad school for creative writing here and a few other schools. And what I say is, fortunately, I did not get into any of them. I got declined at every grad school that I applied to. And I was like, great, now I get to pick where I want to live, right? I didn't have a school bringing me. So sight unseen, I moved to Missoula. I had actually heard about the town of Missoula from a river rafting guide on the Yellowstone that my friends and I went on. And he was from Missoula, saying it was the greatest place ever. And that was 2002. I moved here and just started grad school and started writing a lot about the outdoors, writing about the kind of environmental issues, and that turned into being invited to write about things that were like the localism movement. That was like, eat local, drink local, what local restaurants were doing, and writing about where to eat and drink around Western Montana. Naturally, I fell into the craft beer side, and it was up and coming. And I was fortunate to meet my friend Alan McCormick from Growler Fills Beer Blog, fellow, absolutely, another Beer Bloggers Conference alum. And he told me about the conference. He certainly encouraged me to do my own beer blog. And that's how I started what was now way defunct, the Montana Beer Finder. And that got me noticed by a book publisher, which they reached out and invited me to write from the American Palate series, Montana's guidebook, which was almost honestly out of date the day that it went published, because we have so many breweries now. And we went, yep, that's it. That's the cover. Senator Max Baucus at the time, or he wrote the foreword. He was the head of the Small Brewers Caucus. And from Montana, and an avid brewery supporter, and that was great. And so published that book, and then just a short time, maybe a year or two later, I decided that people needed something to do at the brewery. They might have been inspired or got some backstory about each of the breweries in Montana, but then they needed to do something there. That's when we created the Montana Brewery Passport. And that just furthered my appreciation and love for Montana beer, but also craft beer, and then connecting with folks like yourself at the conference. Did I cover it all? Did I get questions 1 and 2?
Yes. You answered it very well. This is our friend Zach Rosen. Zach, how you doing?
Hey, Zach.
Another fantastic alumni from our fantastic conference, or what do you want to call it? Yeah, conference.
Oh, yeah. I mean,
so, no. So we have the book for sure. So how long did this bad boy take from jump?
Yeah, I'd say, gosh, if my memory serves, it was probably between a 7-month to a year-long process to either visit the breweries that were there or arrange some interviews. I had visited nearly all of them, and just to give you some perspective, I think that book came out in 2014, 6 years ago, about July of 2014. And it has 37 breweries in there, and now we're at about 90, between 85 and 90 in the state. So huge explosion, obviously, in these last 5 to 6 years. But it was about a year-long process, and I made sure to talk with either the brewer, the brewery owner, whatever role they had, and it was a great process. I mean, every single time I either left the brewery or got off the phone with one of them, I was like, that was an awesome story, and you clearly are doing the exact thing that you should be doing for the right reasons. I felt like everybody had a great story and a great reason to open a brewery and make beer for friends and family and community.
So can we talk about for people who are not familiar with the geography of Montana, and I was not until I drove the whole thing.
Yeah.
And it's a big state, and you really figure out quick what big sky means when you come from east and you just go to the west. My perspective was there was nothing in the east but a couple of sleepy towns. Literally, what is that? Tumbleweed going through towns.
Oh, sure.
Literally, it felt like the Wild Wild West, and it's weird because not weird, but it was just different because I drove through North Dakota coming there, and drove into North Dakota. I didn't get that. I got a little bit of the Wild Wild West, but once you roll into Montana, for me, it was like this is the Wild Wild West. So Eastern Montana is. Ryan was shaking his head, but I'll give him ample time to respond for sure. But or not shaking his head, but he was agreeing that East Montana is Wild Wild West. I didn't feel or seem like I was missing much as I was barreling through to get to the western part, which is I describe it as fire. It is amazingly beautiful. Like Eastern Montana, again, it's beautiful. You guys got some rolling hills there, but it's mostly just like flat, or hillish. A little up and down. The roads are very bumpy. I will say that, but it's not. There's not, with all due respect to Eastern Montana, there's really not. There's nothing that really like distinguishes itself like bold. But when you get to Western Montana, now it really, really changed. Yeah, I was just in awe about driving there. I mean, it's so fucking beautiful there. It's just tough being the person who's driving because I'm like, oh, and I'm a mountains guy, Ryan. So it's just amazing. So, but with that landscape being said, me describing in my way, and Western Montana, when I mean by fire, I mean it is mountains, it is beautiful lakes, it is rivers, it is outdoorsy, it is everything. If you're an outdoors person, that's a spot that should be like number one spot that you should think about moving. In my opinion, is Western Montana. It is just so beautiful. It's just two different worlds. So I would suspect that 90. You said there's 90 breweries in Montana. I would suspect that 70 of them are in the west, and we probably got like 20 in the east. Is that a good characteristic? I don't know if you want to.
That's a great
to just jump off on the geography of Montana and how it's really vastly different.
Absolutely. Yeah, gosh, now I'm so curious. I'd love to see that distribution map of these 90 brews broken up. But you're right. There's the pockets. I obviously really agree with your statement that Western Montana is so beautiful and lovely because that's where I live. I'm in Missoula. I'm in Western Montana. And we're in Missoula. Yeah, we're in a hub of 5 valleys. So for such an interesting perspective, you can be in Missoula and just do a 360 and you're surrounded by mountains in every single viewpoint because this is where these 5 valleys come together. But yeah, I share a lot of that description. I agree with you. Eastern Montana, wind-swept, a lot of flat, barren lands. Some deep riverbeds, maybe, but truly the Wild West, right? When you needed a lot of land for livestock, and I believe it's still true that Montana has more cows than people as well. Like that's still a current fact. I think it's always been that way. We're barely a million people for the state, and an incredible amount of land to play in. But yeah, you get that. But then we're kind of blessed to have the Rocky Mountains that come up along the Continental Divide, which is right about Butte, which is a little bit closer to western side than the middle of the state. And so you get the iconic, beautiful mountains. They start to roll out into more tree-lined mountains the more west you get. But yeah, stark contrast.
Yeah, you know how they say, are you a mountain guy? Are you a beach guy? I'm without a doubt a mountain guy. There's no question. Beach is cool, but I'm not really that, into sand that much. Beach is warmer too. So, I'm just saying, I'm more of a mountain guy.
There's an aesthetic to the mountains that I've always been drawn to. And again, I was coming out from East Tennessee, which was their Smoky Mountains. But there's a coziness that I believe that mountains there. In a way, they're holding you. They're there. They're permanent. They're reliable. But they're also full of mystery in a sense, where what you choose to explore. They're the defining part of your landscape, what you see, what you identify with every day. And so there's something to me that's very comforting about that.
Absolutely. And another thing I need to make a comment on about Montana is that I've done a bunch of trips. Before I did the Montana trip, I took a trip out east to Pennsylvania. Did Philadelphia. And it was fun as hell. I had a bunch of my friends. It was great. Great beer, fantastic times. But the thing that I got from Montana that I don't know, I wouldn't say shocked, but I was just really pleasantly surprised is that you guys are really, really, really friendly up there. It's not just the people in the streets. It's the now we call them frontline workers, but it's the hotel guys, it's the supermarket people, it's the gas station guys. It's everywhere I went, I was felt like, I guess, at some point people realized that I was a tourist, but I really got the feel that people really were happy to see other people, and people were genuinely nice. I mean, I can't really, it's hard to explain, but once we stayed at one of the hotels for beer bloggers and just talking to the lady downstairs, and she was just really, really nice. So I ended up going to one of these beer barbecue. Is that in Missoula? Anyway, I was
I know that's out toward Bozeman, I think. 3B barbecue.
Bozeman. Yeah, I get it was a 3-day haze, so I'm sorry if I'm gonna get some of my days mixed up there. It was a 3-day haze of fantastic breweries.
Yes.
That's what it was. But long story short, I went in there and just observing the people there, and just I had a beer and I was just observing the workers and just how they were talking to each other and how they were corresponding, and everybody was just really, really nice. So I made a little comment to the lady, and she's like, you're here at a great time in Montana. She's like, and I think it was June, and she's like, we are very, very nice people. We're outgoing. We love people, but sometimes we're a little bit edgy at the end of spring. And she went and told me, she went on to tell me about how you guys literally like 3 weeks before had like 14 inches of snow, and then had like 10 after that 2 days ago, 2 days after that. And she's just like, look, we're outdoors people, but if you restrict us from going outdoors, it's not going to be nice. So at the end of spring, we're kind of edgy, but if you're here in the summer, we're good. And it was funny. I don't know if you want to jump off on that, but
I love that. One of my favorite sayings is that we get in Montana, you get 9 months of winter and 3 months of visitors. And that's our 2 seasons. But just to parlay on that I've always wondered that with the people who live here, and now that I've been here about 18 years, I feel like I can include myself among those. But you have so much access to wide open space, beautiful landscape, great beer, and other good people. There's just a general happiness that comes along with that, and so you do get excited to share that with other people, visitors, tourists that come through, because there is a bit of home state pride for sure. But we do thrive on a tourism economy. We have 1 million residents, but we get 10 million visitors a year in Montana. And part of that is because we've got access to 2 of the greatest national parks in the country, Yellowstone and Glacier National Park, which some of us got to go up there after the conference up to Glacier and play around. But I do feel like, when you start at that baseline, that people are happy because they've got, just incredible things at their fingertips all the time. that becomes infectious. And so I'm happy that you got to experience that, because it's been the same for me for 18 years. That generally people are happy and love to show it off. And I certainly do when friends or family would come and visit. I want to show off the best parts.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So Alice says, "What's up, Ryan and Greg?"
Hey, how are you? Cheers,
I'm not sure if this is sarcasm or not, but we'll put it out there.
Oh, very much. Yes, Eric. Eric got in. So, right, of course, everybody we love to talk about that.
Don't tell me.
We don't want anybody to move here. Just visit, right?
Secret, yes. I agree. Actually, I agree with Eric on that.
Yeah, right. That's right. Only somebody can move.
Right. So, man, I had such a great time there. I can't. The fact that I'm going to ask you this question. We had a question in the beer group, which is where I asked everybody: is there a brewery that you feel at home at, or is there a brewery that you could call home? So, once we can go, and we'll get to Montana starting. There's starting to be some tap rooms you guys can go on Montana. So we're gonna get to that in a second. But is there a brewery that you call home? And if it is, tell everybody about it and tell us why you call it home.
Yeah, well, I'll share this with you. I do get asked this question, right? I'm always a little cautious because I love them all, and I've written about them all, and I put them all on equal levels. But in all fairness, I would probably point to Draftworks here in Missoula. And the reason is, as I was kind of evolving and up and coming in sort of beer writing and promotion and writing this book, was Draftworks was like Missoula's first new brewery. We've got the oldest in the state, Bayern, like 1987. So they're the oldest continuously run brewery in the state of Montana. Then we've got Big Sky Brewing and Kettle House, both breweries born in the 90s. All right, so on a new wave. But pretty much we've had those three until Draftworks came online. And forgive me, I don't know. I feel like it was around 2010 or 11 for Draftworks. Great, yeah. And I should know this off the top of my head. So here is like a new brewery. And so that was something that I have loved. They've got great accolades. They were very small brewery of the year 1 year at GABF. They've won lots of medals. They also have a terrific central location there. They've centrally located in Missoula. And they've got a great patio to sit outside with. And that ended up by kind of default being my meeting place for my friends. Like, it was easy. No matter, we were in a small town. It's only like 4 miles by 4 miles in every direction. But for some reason, it was just really easy for people to go there. It was a real neighborhood brewery, and it had that neighborhood feel to it. And so maybe being so tuned in and involved in Montana beer world, to have this new brewery that I've been part of, or at least patronizing since day one, that's probably a go-to. I can share stories about lots of other breweries and lots of other beers, but I guess if you're twisting my arm and you're making me pick one, Draftworks is a local. And in fact, as these breweries now are starting to reopen, Draftwork was the very first one that I get to revisit last Friday night and have my first beer at the tap room since all this closure has happened. So that was the one that I went to and enjoyed quite a bit.
I don't know. Have you eaten from the Thai truck at Draftworks?
Big Sky Thai, maybe, if that one was
right there. It was right there when I was there. Yep. It was fantastic.
Yep, I believe that would be the one that would be at Draftworks. I've had them at other outdoor concerts and venues, and agreed, they do a killer job with that. And we are fortunate. We got a lot of great food trucks there. Don't Facebook our stash.
Right. I don't want to tell anybody in Montana, because then you might take the house that I want to buy when I move out there.
Indeed.
So, while we're at that question, so this is a question that you can have multiple answers to too. What brewery do you feel at home, or which brewery do you feel that's going to be first on your list? My three are. I have three. I have Giant Jones, which is a small microbrewery here in Madison, and so is Parched Eagle. So you probably never heard of them. They're really small, 5 years and 3 years, but they're fantastic at what they do, and I love them. And they're great people. So people's part of that equation too. I'm sure once I get, if we would have dug in a little bit more, you would have been like, it's just the people. You walk in, they know me, I know them. Working there forever. I know the brewer. He comes out and has drinks with us at the end of the day, blah, blah, blah. So it's interesting. So I have two. I actually have a total of three, but my third one is a Montana brewery. And I was just blown away when I walked into, this is their shirt. We are because of each other. It's Imagination Brewing in Missoula. And I walked into that place. I should have brought up pictures. I walked into that place, and before I even had the beer, I knew it was just my place. They have like bookshelves kind of like behind you. They go all the way up. They have games, and it just, you feel like it's I don't know. I don't want to say a throwback to the 60s, but it kind of feels that way a little bit. It just all grabbed me, the whole environment. So then I sit down and I have a beer, and every beer that I have was like fantastic. And I'm going to pull them up. If you look at the way they describe their beers, each beer has like this big story about it. And usually they are, about justice people, or people doing social justice, or women warriors of the Southern Mexico Cinco de Mayo. Every brewery has a story. So long story short, Ryan, I'm in there and I just start talking I was just like, this is great. I text the lady, I was like, you should see these shirts, let's get some shirts. And she's like, text me back, she's like, get this shirt, get that shirt. So I get all these shirts, and I just start talking to the people there, and they just gave me such a homely feel, like I was at home. And the problem is that you probably know this too, when you go to a new spot, Missoula has many great places. So that was like the first or second stop in Missoula. So I couldn't even spend any time there, like, or I would have missed, Kettle House, and the long list of fantastic. I would have missed Droughtworks, because Droughtworks was right after that. But I really wanted to stay there, so I just started talking to them, and I ended up taking beers that I had brought out there and brought them in, and they were like, "Can we give you something?" And I was like, "No. Like, I just feel really good vibes from this place. I just want to give you beer." And I told them I was a blogger, and they're like, "Where?" And I was like, "It's not really about that. Like, I just want you guys just to have beer, and I just want to, give you guys something, because I feel really good vibes from this place." It was weird. I don't really I go to a lot of places, and I don't feel the way that I felt when I walked in there and after I walked in that place. So I don't know if obviously you've been there, but that's my place in Montana that I feel at home. The next time I come there, if I ever go to Montana, I have to go to this place. It doesn't have to.
Yeah. And I'll have a beer there with you, for sure.
Yeah, man. I can't say enough about how welcoming and warm I felt that place was.
That's awesome. And I know if Fernanda and Robert, the owners, were on there, they'd be gleaming, because you're picking up exactly what they were trying to lay down since day one. One of the great things about craft beer is that it's a thread that can bring us together in so many ways and stitch together different parts of our lives. And you see that reflected in a lot of ways where people go out and recreate, and then they have a beer together, or it's used as there's a fundraiser one night for a local nonprofit, and it's a portion of the proceeds with Imagination that you were talking about. That's been their motto since day one. It was almost that the beer, as exceptional and high quality as it is, was second to everything else they wanted to accomplish with that space and with that business. And so instead of trying to fit beer into a lifestyle, they had this lifestyle that beer just was able to amplify. And that's exactly it. They're about the social justice, environmental topics, live music, just people, just us humans coexisting on this planet to the best of our abilities. They're behind that. So I've never seen another brewery anywhere in my travels that is for the same reasons that Imagination is, that it exists for the same reasons. So yeah, they make good beer.
Thinking out loud here, I didn't even think about it. If you know them and if they're media centric, I would love to talk to them.
Oh yeah, I would be happy to. I will certainly give you guys an introduction there.
They're my
yeah.
They're my shit.
Yes. I hope they make another T-shirt like that.
Yeah, there's a brewery that really, gets me. That place gets me for sure. Yeah. So that being said, man, another place that I loved was I love Bozeman, Montana. I absolutely love it. I stayed there right after the conference. I stayed there 2 days, like one block off of the main street there, and it was just. I don't know. I just fell in love with the place. And they have great breweries there too. I completely enjoyed Map Brewing. That is a fantastic place. It's so beautiful. And that chicken sandwich, man. That chicken sandwich. Man, I had that before Popeyes. And man, I love Popeyes, but I mean that chicken sandwich, I don't know if you had it. Fantastic. But that place I said is one of the best brewery ambiances ever. You walk out the back there, and it's just mountain range, and that's just Montana. Like that to me, that place is Montana. And another place before I get to my next question is I have to mention Highlander Brewing.
Oh yeah,
and that's in Missoula, right?
Yep. Hometown here,
Missoula. Right up the street from Big Sky, which was fantastic and great.
Correct.
Big Sky's more of an industrial type feel. Like that's like the normal kind of like new age industrial type feel. At least when I was there, I don't think they moved, right?
Nope, just expanded through there.
Home of Moose Drool, what everybody knows, fantastic beer. But right up the street, I believe, right, is Highlander, and that oh my goodness, that place is fantastic. The beers are great. You walk in, and you get this old school kind of like. Not really loud cabinish, but kind of like rustic old school feel, and they have fantastic pizza there. But the real star of the show is when you walk out the back and they have this bustling River Creek area with seats and just this nice outdoor area. And to me, again, that is Montana. I got my little couple there. They give you flights, or you can take little beers. Had my little beers and took them out, sat right by the creek, and the creek is going, and there's kids running around, and parents were here. It was so fantastic, right? I can't say enough, man. I was just blown away how I was like, this is Montana. Like this is everything for me from Montana. I just wanted to sit there all day and just slog them back, man. It's just, you guys have the atmosphere that Montana breweries bring. It's just different than I've ever experienced.
Well, I appreciate hearing that. You are Montana's beer expert, honestly, right? Because you've experienced this and you pick up on what they're doing. And kudos. Just to briefly comment on your three selections there, Map and we talked about Imagination, but talk about Map and talk about Highlander. One of the common themes I just picked up on for all your three choices is, yes, we're surrounded by mountains with all those, but also by water. So Imagination Brewing sits right on the banks of the Clark Fork River. And so the whole the story, a river runs through it, talking about Missoula, is the Clark Fork River. A river runs through it. It runs through Missoula. So you're there on the banks of that. Map has, yes, it's got the great mountains in the background, but you're right on this little lake pond right in the back. You can sit on the banks of the water. And then Highlander, right? The creek that runs through it. This is a little thing that you wouldn't expect anywhere, but you open these big doors. Shannon and Bob Lukes, who own Highlander or Missoula Brewing Company, they've done a great job because that was an iconic beer brand back in the day. So funny. This was in my book, but it's such a neat little piece of trivia with Highlander specifically. When Highlander was going to be made, there was a sort of like a trademark dispute. This brewery in Missoula wanted to be call this beer Highlander, but it was actually that name was owned by a baseball team in New York. And so the brewery owners wrote a letter and said, can we use this name, Highlander, to name our beer? And they wrote back, and this New York baseball team did, and said, the timing is good. Yes, you can use Highlander because we're about to change our name to the New York Yankees. And so that was the passing of the torch. What was New York Yankees gave off this name of the Highlander back to permission to use in a small Missoula brewery long time ago. So there's a lot of rich history, and Bob and Shannon have done a great job preserving that and sort of reinventing it as well. Yeah, so good job. It's another great place for sure.
Yeah, and it's unassuming too. Meaning you drive up there and you look at the place and you're almost like, oh, this is going to be like a normal brewery experience. And again, many ways, and not in a negative way, just like not like a distinguishable, unique way. But once you walk in, you find out real fast that it's very distinguishable and very fucking unique. Hot fire, man, hot fire. So I mentioned this too, and you mentioned it too. You were recently in a tap room.
Yeah, I was.
Okay. So I mentioned it in pre-production a little bit, but Montana is one of the first states to truly open up. People are talking about opening up, but opening up is, opening up could be this much, opening up could be that much. So when people say we're opening up, I need way more details than that because I don't really know what that means. Golf courses are different than tap rooms, but tap rooms are, it feels like for me, one of the last things that open up. So when I say Montana's opening up, I actually feel that like you guys are way closer than, most places. And obviously if you have more cows than people, and with a pandemic, obviously, concentration of people is literally not a joke killer. Yep. So it almost makes sense I'm not out there. But so how does this is the first time I get to ask this. How does I don't like these words because it's not true, post-pandemic, but after, because we're really not post-pandemic at all. But how does that look after, again, the virus goes through your area and you're able to go back? Where, first of all, and how?
Oh, yeah. Well, the breweries all have that option to reopen, and most have. And it has been so far done in a very controlled manner. So I can give you my firsthand experience because I was at Draftworks. I mentioned that. I went there for a Friday night beer. So that there were, of course, some very notable and substantial changes. Well, one, they are adhering by the social distancing, very much so. Your even your party size is very limited, 4 to 6 people at most at a table. You stay seated at your table. There's no congregating. You don't go over and talk to your friend. You're there. You are seated. You wait to be seated. They were able to take, because we've had some beautiful days here this late spring, they've opened up their whole parking lot and put tables out there. So they expanded their outdoor seating as well as their indoor seating, right? So they could accommodate there as well. And then it's all table service. Draftworks used to be bar. You even ordered at the bar. There was 0 table service, and every time you wanted a beer, you went up to the bar and you ordered one. You brought it back to your table. That's flipped. So now there's table service. All the employees are wearing their masks. Yep. They ask for 0 cash. Say again.
Are you as a customer required?
Not required. No. Nope. Okay. Yep, not required. The only requirements, I think we're just still mostly at our Costco as a mask required, but of course mask encouraged everywhere. So I just keep mine on my little rear view mirror, ready to go in. So it is. It's all table service, and it's credit card only. And but they worked hard and it's still it's a great experience because you get to be around other people even by proxy, and One of the things with all of this that I've noticed, and it even applied to my experience at DraftWorks, with all this mask wearing, I feel like our eyes are that much more expressive, right? Like we communicate with our eyes because it's so visible. You don't get as many facial features or smiles or you don't really know. So you read it in their eyes. And that's really stuck out to me to be in that type of scenario and look around at people, how much we really communicated with our eyes. It was really a neat little moment.
Yeah, and people are commenting too about how you used to give that subtle grin to people, like you're giving that like hi, or what I mean, or a head tip, or someone coming your way, you just give them a little smile and like walk away. And people are, you see these memes on, people are like, man, I'm smiling through a mask and no one's seeing me. I think though, like your smile's not, your smile is, what is it like? What did they say? Like 400. I forget, like 40 different muscles used to make your smile. So your smile's really not, you know what I mean? Your smile's not confined to here. Your head moves when you smile, and so there's that, that eye inflection and that your face inflection. So I still think that there's a little value in it, but I do feel it because once the mask is supposed to come up here, and it's hard to see like anything.
You don't get the whole picture, right? You don't get the whole picture, just not as much.
That was we have on our Friday show, we have a segment called "The Thing I Don't Want to Think About." And 2 weeks ago, the thing I didn't want to think about is wearing a mask to a tap room. As a tap room person, it just to me, it's like it's almost is it antithesis the antithesis of what you're supposed to, or you go to a tap room to see people, to drink, to be cordial, to be open, to be social, and a mask kind of feels like you put it on and it almost feels the complete opposite. Like I'm not supposed to talk.
Sure.
And I'm supposed to, it's almost isolating. I know we all need to do it. I know, we have to, all that, but it's, again, it's almost defeating the purpose of going in. You know what I'm saying?
I get that. Yeah. But then I guess devil's advocate too, right? I feel like what we're doing is we're taking our pleasures differently, or we're perceiving our pleasures differently. Like just the experience of going and supporting your local brewery in a whole new, in a new way, that they're eager to see us and we're eager to see them, the brewery staff and there. But I think that's one of the things is what's our new normal for pleasure and enjoyment. I would love to run up to you, Daddy Porter, and just give you a big old hug. Right. Yeah. But yeah. But now I would just I was sitting in the same area, enjoying the same good beer. Yeah.
So what? So that leads. So some tap rooms are opening. What else are you seeing? And it's funny because normally the people I talk to now, I'm asking, what are you seeing now? And we're all under lockdown. You're not, or you're coming out of it. So it's just, again, it's a perfect time to talk to you. Sure. But are you still seeing? Are we still seeing pandemic policies, is what I call them, which is curbside or online ordering? Are they still? Do you still see that happening after the tap rooms are opening? Are they still offering that? Because that's something I want to see stick around, to be honest with you.
I agree with you in that statement. I would like to see that stick around. And yes, what I've seen so far with the breweries specifically, that the online ordering, the curbside pickup has not gone away. They've just added those that have the physical taproom space, like that can open and still adhere to social distancing and controlled environment. They can add that to their repertoire. But yeah, it's still very much curbside. Maybe some are still doing delivery. We had a lot of breweries doing delivery.
Please. The curbside and the delivery, please. And there's so many reasons for it. And I really believe that breweries would, because Droughtworks is what it's called, right?
DraftWorks, draft is the way it's spelled draught for sure.
Okay, Droughtworks. Okay, so let me use them as an example. When I rolled into there, I found a bar seat, but I was the only one. The patio was out. You guys you took that.
Yes.
There's no patio. Okay. So and I was just going through my beer tours. But if I was a local and it was Friday night and it was Friday night at 6 p.m. and I'm getting off work and I just want to get some beer, Ryan, and go home, I don't want to sit in that line at Drought I don't want to, with all due respect, I like you guys, but I worked all week. I want to get my beer and I just want to go home, be with the lady, be with the family, whatever. And if I can just I leave work, I hit you online, I can pull up there. You guys will just throw it in my trunk. I paid you, I tipped you. I can just buzz. I don't have to worry about the tap room scene, because sometimes, again, it's not. Sometimes the tap room scene is what you want, and sometimes it's absolutely not what you want. so,
Totally.
so it's a mood thing. So I really urge every brewery that listens to me, which is probably only two, but it's fine now. No, but to continue these policies, because I believe that they'll be you're opening yourself to another revenue, which is people who feel that, like, I want a beer and I want to be able to pick up beer, but I don't want to go to the tap room at 7:00 at night and I know they're out the door and I know I have to wait in line, and you know what I mean? Virus aside and germs aside and all that, you know?
Yeah, agreed. I was talking with Matt Leo, the executive director of the Montana Brewers Association. So I'm fortunate to be able to help consult with him to, if we have it, the Montana Brewers Association annual conference. So their industry conference is going to go in October. But we were talking about that. I was asking him about these laws to be like, what's going to stick around in there. But I think Montana breweries always had the option to deliver, which was just something they never needed to do before this came along. And if I believe it falls, I'm not the law expert, but sort of falling into the right to self-distribute, which all Montana breweries had.
Mm-hmm.
So, he said, interestingly, it was just a right they've never exercised by need. So that law, I guess, is on the books, so to speak, that if we wanted to, any brewery wanted to continue delivery or the curbside service or things like that, it really wasn't too special for this, for them to be able to do that. So I don't know. I mean, maybe they'll figure it out.
Yeah, go Montana, man.
Yeah.
I can't say enough. So I cannot have you on without talking about this.
Yeah, man. Yeah.
Can't do that. You'll probably see I flipped. I use this as my look at that. My imagination.
Oh, there you are. Yeah.
So I used it. Oh, the robust porter was only 3 point. I don't know. What's up, guys, with your porter? Anyway, so I don't know. I want to talk about this, how it came to being,
cool.
What just spurred, how long you've been doing it, all that. Wonderful.
Awesome. I have to look it up because I am now in my 9th printing, at least. Yeah, 9th printing of this book, and the challenge is honestly keeping it up because we've had so many breweries open over the years, but. Yeah, it was one of those. It was something that came up after I published my book, Montana Beer, because again, I mentioned this earlier that I wanted there to be something that people could do while you're at the brewery. But the true inspiration from that harkens back to when I started, when I was telling you about my summer trip and first trip to Montana was to work at national parks, just volunteer at national parks, do anything that they needed, clean fire pits, paint picnic tables. But what I always loved about going to national parks was to visit the visitor center and have their stamps on the little, there was a little passport or my journal. I filled them with stamps. And I love that concept because it told me the day and the time, the day I was there and whatever I'd write about it. And that was the inspiration. I was like, why not do that with breweries, especially in a state as awesome as Montana, where most of the fun is getting to the brewery and seeing the mountains and driving along rivers, right? So the adventure is there. Yeah. And then you get rewarded. So it is. That's the whole thing was like national parks are doing this. We got great breweries. Let's do it in Montana. It was my first and only crowdfunding project. It got fully funded, which is just enough to buy the first print order. And since then it's been great. Most of the breweries in Montana are carrying them, so you can go to your brewery, buy it there, support them. get your first stamp all in the same process. Some people still buy online and I ship it to them. And, it's been honestly terrific since it launched in 2016, 2015, 2016. My dates are all screwed up. But yeah, it was, it's just great. But honestly, the thing is I try to do smaller print runs because breweries, they come and go. Yeah, we've lost a few this year, unfortunately, but we got new ones in the pipeline. 2 for Missoula for sure coming on this year.
Oh, you mentioned it, so I have to say, is that Snow Hop?
It's gone.
Yeah,
Snow Hop, Becky Moore.
That hurt. That hurt from Wisconsin.
Yeah, it hurt a lot. I know, especially when that news dropped. And
do we know if the brewer landed anywhere else?
no, not that I've seen, and I don't know.
When you shoot me a note, I want to know. She's kick ass.
You bet. Becky is the bomb. She is incredible.
Absolutely. She's what I remember from there, but I remember the different things that they were doing there. That was one of my favorite stops for sure. For sure, that was one of my favorite stops. Yes. So and again, her story is inspirational. She's great. So again, I'm gonna bug you too. If I don't hear from you about this one, I'm gonna keep asking. Have we heard anything about her? Because that was great. So so this is so have we heard any we know about Snow Hop, but Snow Hop was a pre-pandemic casualty.
Yeah.
But have you heard anything about any, because my fear, Ryan, is one of my fears is that especially places, not again, I'm not in Montana, so I can't speak to whether, quote, you guys are ready to come out or not. Mm-hmm. I suspect that, being, again, if there's more cows than people there, I think that, and again, I believe, not to talk politics here, but I believe that from what I know about your governor, he's doing the best he can, and he's, weighing all these things and doing all that. Mm-hmm. But have you heard of any, I'm afraid of us starting back up too soon and people not wanting to go. Mm-hmm, and that's going to ultimately cause some breweries to fall off. I don't know if you've heard of any breweries having pandemic problems or already falling out.
Just one, and this news just broke end of last week. We lost one in Deer Lodge, Montana. It was called Elk Ridge Brewing Company. They had been going for maybe 3 or 4 years. Very small town, but it was off the Highway 90, the main interstate. They announced that they without many details, just said that they were unable to reopen. So their brewery's for sale. There is another brewery that is in operation in eastern Montana, but it is actively for sale. We've lost 4 this year in the state, but 3 of those were pre-pandemic, just for various reasons. So Snow Hop, Yellowstone Valley Brewing Company in Billings, and then Great Northern Brewing Company up in Whitefish. They had prime real estate, and so their building got bought up, and I don't think they're the new person was necessarily wanting a brewery, so he liked the real estate. So I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. But the fallout is not here yet, right? We don't really know.
Yeah. Right. And the opening up, again, it's a good thing. But to me, it could be a bad thing if we don't open up to where, again, because we're used to a certain amount of clientele in our breweries. We're used to, being able to, these are numbers that we use to business. And one of the things I hear too, which I do like to push back on sometimes, which is, the bigger the brewery, the better chance they have to last. And I'm like, no, because the bigger the brewery, that means bigger real estate, generally speaking. Like higher costs on that, but also, the bigger and better breweries have the bigger and better locations. And the bigger and better locations cost a hell of a lot more than your little microbrewery in your basement, with all due respect, or even your microbrewery in like an industrial building. A lot of times you can work with the people who, the management there. But if you got a big old plot of land in the middle of town, I don't know, like Kettle House, right?
Kettle House. Well, I just wanted to jump in because that was actually one of the other pieces. they've had 3 breweries in operation now in the Missoula area. One of them's in conjunction with an outdoor music amphitheater. They actually did close one of their 3 locations because of the pandemic. They're still using it as an actual brewery, but they closed down the taproom portion. But yeah, not to cut you off, but yeah, absolutely. It was like the early indicators for breweries, and we see this, like grocery sales for beer was up. So if you were a brewery already canning or bottling, you had a higher chance of success. But when you lose your tap room and then you lose it for weeks on end, and even if that's the bulk of it, it was there. I talked to Jeff Grant on Friday when I was there. He's one of the owners of DraftWorks. It was like grocery sales up, but we lost our tap room, so it was real still down.
Well, and again, another problem that big breweries have that small breweries don't generally, and people don't understand, is you took away all their keg sales from restaurants. So now we have that problem too, because now we have a volume of moving beer. Now we have beer sitting. Now we have breweries. You know what I mean? Now we have material sitting if we're not brewing. The material staying fresh. I mean, and these are big quantities. And then you have their wholesalers saying, you normally buy this from me. What's going on? Well, you already know what's going on. It's a pandemic. Don't call me and ask me that. But no, these are, you know what I mean? Like obviously Biggie said more money, more problems. Yeah. So again, a lot of them are funded well. A lot of them, you know what I mean? But I think we have to be concerned about all of them at some point.
Oh, we certainly do. And even the question is, if you can reopen, will people come? We've already been, preconditioned to this, whatever new normal there is. Like, yeah.
And there's going to be a certain amount of people that come, but again, is it going to be? Again, we need those numbers. These are numbers that, again, are calculated, that we look at. They look at their books last year to say, hey, we did this last year. You know what I mean? So all this correlates. So people, it's just very interesting and sometimes scary. Tomorrow, I have Julia Hers, and you know what she brings to the table. So
she brings it all. She's so great. Oh, I love her.
Right. But what she really brings is like, that first talk that she has at the Beer Bloggers Conference, where she just lays everything out. So I'm just looking for a lot of that information tomorrow. I was looking for it from you today from Montana. So real quick about your experience back to the tap room. So did you, given all that was in place that was different, what was the crowd like? Was it busy?
It was busy. Got there, late Friday afternoon, about 5:00, and was there for maybe a couple hours. And every table I saw that was available was filled. There's a lot of like virtual cheersing,
and it's half capacity of that, right? So it's not,
if that.
Okay, right. So again, we're not. We're doing what we can, but let's not act like this is, even remotely fully cranking, or even it doesn't even sound like it was half cranking. So, so it's I think, Ryan, the more we talk about this, and we're actually thinking out loud here and talking, I think as you slowly open up, I think early you'll be fine. What happens when we try to stretch it further? When we're working on full capacity, and again, it seems like the way we're handling this as a country is that pretty much every region is going to be doing this on their own. So it's and the rate, how fast? Because again, I'm not. You're probably more on tune in this or not. So like you guys have these set of standards now. So when does Bullock, your governor, or when does everybody decide that next week we can go to 50% capacity, next week we can go to, or next month we can? So I think early on, Ryan, I think it's going to be fine. They'll be able to get enough people, but again, when we get to larger things, I don't know. So it's going to be very, very interesting, and it's also going to be determined by because again, if I lived in Montana, I would feel a lot better about quote opening up right now than I do in Wisconsin or than I would in New York. You know what I mean? So it's all relative.
all relative, and relative even to Missoula. Our county health department um, sort of denied things that our governor was allowing. So they said, fine for the governor, but we sort of overrule them. So we were delayed, but we got tap rooms, gyms and salons are going to be open now. Lots of different things. But we're also in a fortunate scenario where we haven't had a new case in over 2 weeks, a new COVID case in over 2 weeks in the county. So this is this is good direction. But yeah, again, that you've got what you can do, then what you're allowed to do, and then what can you actually do in your space, and is it enough? And then the third factor is, will they come? So it's a lot to play.
I consider myself an overreactor, man. I really do.
Sure.
I was self quarantining before we were told to, but I don't know, man. No cases in 14 days or 2 weeks or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Oh man, that sounds really, man. Montana. I can't say enough about it.
Montana. Come and visit, but apparently some other people here don't move here.
Right. Listen, I'm not telling anybody to move there. Actually, I'm not, because I want to. I continue to say it, but no, man. It sounds like things are going, as well as can be out there. As far as the virus goes and pandemic, and I already know that it's great beer wise. I just really hope that just like everywhere, I hope we can all get out as much as we can. Get out of this as unscathed as possible, especially the breweries, because, man, we're going to need them. Not only do we need them as mom and pop shops, not only do we need them as an economy, at this point, we're going to need them as a damn relief. True. And we're, with all due respect, buddy, I'm not even trying to call you out or even make fun, but it's I could be wrong, and tell me if I'm wrong, because we're here, but it seemed like the second you could get to a tap room, you were there, bro.
I was there. Of course I was. Absolutely. I'm human and I like people. So yeah, even from afar,
shame at all, man. No shame at all.
Absolutely. I get it. Yeah. But I did not bring my kids. Again, that's one of these personal choices, right? It was, what am I willing to do, but not also, we're going to have to all face these questions individually.
Right, and no judgment. Everybody has to do what you have to do for yourself. Actually, it makes it even more accenting that you have to do for yourself, and you have to think for yourself and your family. Period. We ain't doing it for you, nor should we.
Yeah, exactly.
Especially again when shit is so localized, and it's so the virus is very, obviously it's global, but it's very localized. Depending on where it hits, what cities. It spreads everywhere. Don't get me wrong, but again, places like Montana, again, you guys gotta worry about your cows catching it more than you guys.
No doubt. It was one of my early favorite pieces of humor when all this shutdown was happening. It says, Montana law or rule in effect, keep 6 feet apart, and the Montanans were looking at that and saying, "Really, we have to be that close to each other?" We're used to being way far away. So.
Right. So one last thing, Ryan, I want to ask you about that it just popped in my head, and it was very interesting when I found out, which is you want to talk a little bit about what Montana does on its lakes and its rivers as far as beer goes, and what kind of restrictions you guys have.
Great. Yeah, absolutely. Case in point right here. So many cans. So some of our most iconic rivers, the Blackfoot River included, which was again featured in Brad Pitt film, right? There's no glass. You cannot have glass on or near the Blackfoot River. So we, as a state, was one of the early adopters to put beer in cans. Kettle House was I think one of the earliest that did canning on a big scale, and they learned directly from Oscar Blues. They went down and basically copied the Oscar Blues canning system. So we so many breweries. are in cans. Lots of crowlers. We get both 12-ounce cans, 16-ounce cans. And I think that's one of the most important. A lot of river growlers. We have a great brewery up in Kalispell, Bias Brewing, and they do like you've seen the wine in the bag of wine. They'll do bag of beer. And so they've got a cool growler system that will collapse. And it's basically like a bag, and they'll fill it for you, whatever beer you want. And it's just this plastic bag with a cap on it. So we've gotten innovative, right? We want to recreate with our beer. We want to take it in places.
You also have plastic beer too, right? You have beer in plastic too, I thought.
I've got plastic growlers. I'm trying to think of it if I'm missing something, but
is it metal?
Again?
Is it metal? I've seen some I thought I saw some crazy different containers up there when I was up there. And you guys were like, when I was asking, you guys were like, this is because we can't take glass, so we do all kinds of shit. And I'm like, oh, okay.
Lots of like hydro flasks, that type of cool, insulated metal, straight metal side. Moostrol has these great recyclable plastic hard side growlers. That's one of my favorite growlers to have. Mm-hmm. Honestly, we'll put beer in anything, so it seems to be.
But I understand that because when you come around there, you guys literally have blue water.
Mm-hmm.
It's blue. You could see through it.
Yeah, totally. It is. It's fascinating. There's no shortage of ways to get out and get your feet wet.
So I got one last question for you, and this is inspired by my sometimes co-host Doug Ziegler. He's working, so he can't be here today, but he is a fan of. And he loves Scotch and Scottish ales. He loves them. And when I came back from Montana, I told him that you need to go to Montana because I felt swarmed under by the amount of Scotch and Scottish ales. Yep. So I left Montana thinking that Montana was a malt-forward place. Am I wrong by that assessment? And if you could just go into a little bit, tell me whether I'm wrong about the Scottish ales or not, and what are the predominant styles there in Montana?
Oh, great question. I'll say simply, I do believe that a lot of Montana beers are malt forward. And there's two reasons that I would give for that. One, we're in Montana. We grow a lot of barley. We have Malt Europe. We have the second largest malting facility in the world, the largest in North America. They're in Great Falls. I believe we had a really nice dinner out there.
We were there.
So, of course, we grow the best barley. I've heard a stat that like 1 out of 6 beers in the United States has Montana barley in it, regardless, Budweiser to craft. So, yes, there. Second reason that I think we're malt forward, our oldest and most iconic Montana brewery is Bayern, the most traditional German brewery that you can find. As a traditional German brewery, you do get to play up those malts, yeast. You're not finding a lot of crazy hoppy IPAs, right, from a traditionally German brewery. All of their equipment, all of the instructions and warning signs are in German for everything there. So if you want to brew there, you must know German. So I believe here we've had a longevity of good German beers. But to the Scotch ale, that is a great question. And I have to point and give mad credit to Kettle House Brewing Company. Mm-hmm. They are known for cold smoke Scotch ale. Mm-hmm. It's an 8% dark beer. It was one of these that has been around for a long time. You got a lot of bang for your buck. You got a nice high gravity beer, and it was a Scotch ale. And even back when I was writing this book 6 years ago, a lot of those brewers were telling me, be like, gosh, if I could only have my community's cold smoke, and they would use that beer as the representation of popularity, of people that really embraced it as their own. So hearing that from these breweries in eastern Montana, northwest Montana, like, gosh, I want my community's cold smoke, because it was a standard. It was the bar that so many breweries wanted to do, to replicate, was what Kettle House was doing. And I think part of the reason and the popularity for the Scotch ale, the Scottish ale, is because of Cold Smoke and Kettle House, and the way that they've made it so popular and welcome, that people are trying to, make their own and maybe, get a little piece of that pie. But there's some great ones out there for sure. A lot of Montana breweries are making that style.
Yeah, and it's no slight, and it's smart, actually. I mean, a lot of people are drinking Scotch ales. Maybe I can make one too.
Absolutely.
And, yeah. It's no different than the IPA thing. It's just no different, in my opinion.
Agreed. We've already, like, Kettle House has already accustomed the beer drinker in Montana to accept and love the Scotch ale. Why not? Why not do your own?
Some of the best ideas, Ryan, come from somewhere else.
All of my ideas come from other people. Every one of them.
Man, you're figuring out why I go to the Beer Bloggers Conference.
Yes.
Me doing this show took like 7 years of going there. So.
Yes. Awesome.
Ryan, it's been awesome, man. Thank you for giving me your perspective on Montana beer. Thank you for giving me, especially in lockdown here, giving me a little bit of hope. Remembering my last road trip, I can't say enough about how much I love Montana. So you actually have taken me back to a place to where I'm very, very happy. So thank you.
I'm honored to have that space.
I want to have you back on. I usually want to have everybody back on after the pandemic. But also, though, it's fucking great that this timing with you, because you were at a tap room and like everybody's like, well, I'm sure. I know my mind is blown. Yeah. Wow. But no. So I kind of I'm gonna dial you up in the fall, see what's going on in Montana, and I'll have you back to have a conversation.
Awesome. I look forward to that.
Because I won't be back to Montana in the fall, but 2021, man.
Good year.
I don't know. Right. So thanks, Ryan. I'll talk to you soon. Stay safe out there.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, Montana beer. I love it. I love Montana beer. Fantastic. Thank you both. Love hearing about Montana, especially the COVID reopenings. Kind of relevant. Very relevant. Who is that though? Oh, it's Zach. Sorry, I can't see your name here. Zach, you should. I need to have you on here, and we can talk about Southern California and what's going on down there, and what you're into and what you're not into, since you're in lockdown. And I know California. It's funny. Ryan's talking about how they're loosening stuff up there. I just saw LA said you mofos need to stay home for another 3 weeks or 3 months, 3 weeks. What was it? Crazy. So thank you guys for indulging me on my Montana love and my missing of it. I am missing it. So tomorrow I get to talk to Julia Hurst. We get to have an American Craft Beer Week chat. It's American Craft Beer Week. Julia is going to talk about what the Brewers Association is doing. I'm going to ask her 6,000 questions about where the breweries are, what she's seeing. I'm going to be relentless in this aspect. I cannot wait. It's going to be fun. And she's a great spokesman for the Brewers Association and craftbeer.com. Love it. Can't wait. Tomorrow night, we have Vicky's Cookies. We're giving away some beer-themed cookies. You have to show up to the chat and comment, and you'll be entered to win some of Vicky's Cookies delivered contactless to your house. And those cookies are fun, and they're good looking, and they're amazing. So yeah, Josh, coming on. Okay, great. Would love to chat sometime. Definitely be here. Yes, Julius, you already know. But Josh, I'm gonna hit you on the side, man. I'd absolutely love to talk to you. It'd be fantastic. So I will see you guys. Let's see what we got tomorrow. Tomorrow at 1 p.m. here, noon Mountain Time, 11 a.m. Pacific time. Get to talk to Julia. It's been a great week. I want everybody to enjoy American Craft Beer Week as much as you can. I got some contactless curbside takeout from Vintage Brewing. Vintage Brewing won the best small brew pub in America at the GABF last year, so they're fantastic. The food was great. You see that on my Instagram. I'm going to be hitting you guys up soon. Tomorrow, Julia. I can't wait. It's been forever. I've been trying to get her on, so it's going to be not forever, but it's been more my fault than hers. So we'll see. All right. I'll see you guys tomorrow, lunchtime.